So the podcast has been going for almost 2 years now, so I thought it'd be a good time to look back on those conversations with all of those filmmakers. I've spoken to over 100 filmmakers, and I thought I'd distill all the advice they gave me about first feature films into this video. If you haven't seen the podcast before, do subscribe. There's longer conversations with a ton of filmmakers who are all making their films. They've all made a first feature, so they've got lots of advice to share. What I'll try and do is flash up some episode titles as I'm talking through these tips, so you can see the filmmaker that made this suggestion and watch the full episode and the full conversation with them. First up is a feature beats 10 shorts. Now this advice was around that you can only make so many short films. Don't get stuck in a short film trap where you just keep making short films because you haven't got the confidence to make a feature film. So if you're going to go out there and spend all that time making short after short after short, then why not make a feature? Personally, my advice would be, if you're going to do that, if you're going to make short films, then maybe use them all in an anthology, or potentially have a connective story so that you can, in the end, stick them all together and release them as a feature. But I guess what the filmmaker was talking about here was what you learn about storytelling from doing a feature film. The next piece of advice was music and sound are your friends. So this came from a filmmaker who got into the edit suite and just saw the power of music and sound on that film and what they can add to the film. Sounds obvious that sound and music are important, but sound can really help tell that story and music can really help add emotion to it. So don't underestimate these two things. Think very carefully about them, and ideally think very carefully about choosing the right composer and also getting someone else to do the sound for you. This brings me on to the next filmmaker's piece of advice, which is wearing too many hats. So as a first-time filmmaker, you can often find yourself in a position where you are doing absolutely everything. You're the DOP, you're directing, you're editing, you're doing special effects, you might be in charge of props, you're the producer, so you're worrying about locations and feeding everyone. So the piece of advice here is to try not to wear too many hats on your first feature. You may have to, you might be forced into that position, but if you can avoid it, what it will do is it will give other people those key roles, and it will mean that you can concentrate on your own role. Another filmmaker mentioned speaking up more. And this is a tough one because when you're making your first feature film, you might not have that confidence to speak to people who've obviously got more experience than you. If you've got DOP who's more experienced, or if you've got people cast, you might even have cast who've worked on other things before and feel a bit trepidatious about chatting to them about performance. But in that position, his advice was make sure you do speak up when you feel like you need to about anything to do with the film, the plot, the story. Obviously you've got to temper that with the schedule you're on, how much time you've got, how much money you've got to shoot with, but you don't want to leave that film feeling like you could have said something to make a scene better in the right moment. So this one, I would say, is the underlying message from a ton of filmmakers, and this is that self-distribution isn't failure. Self-distribution in the past is considered something you maybe do at the very end of speaking to tons and tons of distributors and tons of sales agents, not finding the right one, so you self-distribute. Things have completely flipped now, and I think self-distribution is the go-to for a ton of filmmakers, and these filmmakers are actually out there earning money, making films that are profitable, and they've got sort of mini studios running. So don't think of self-distribution as a last resort. Think, is it the strategy I want to release my film with? The importance of artwork, and this, loosely translated, is actually talking about your thumbnail of your film, whether that be on YouTube or on a platform like Tubi, or if you're lucky enough to get on something like Netflix, your thumbnail, the thing that people are going to press, click on, select when they're on that platform is super important, and that's all informed by your artwork. So really do make sure you spend the time and energy on that artwork. Make sure you've researched other people's artwork, the ones that are popular, the ones that are doing well, the ones that pop out at you when you're on those different platforms. That's what you need to emulate, because without that artwork, people won't find your project, they won't click on your project, they won't watch the film. Film festivals, be strategic. Every filmmaker has got their own horror story of how much money they've spent on Film Freeway, taking punts on film festivals. We've all done it. You've made your feature film, you're really proud of it and you want people to see it, and you really sort of fantasize about this moment when you do this huge festival run, you show at lots of different festivals, you get all these different people to see your movie, but you've got to be realistic and you've got to be strategic. Don't waste a bunch of money without really thoroughly researching those film festivals and making sure they're right for you. I've done a separate video on film festival strategy, so do check that one out. That will give you some tips on how to make sure you're entering the right film festivals, and if even film festivals are right for you. But take this filmmaker's advice, don't waste a ton of money entering every film festival going, be strategic. Stop waiting for permission. So this, again, a little bit tied to the short film trap you can get stuck in, is some people feel like they need permission to go out and make this feature film. They need the universe to tell them that they're ready. And the truth of the matter is, you're never really going to be ready. You're never going to be ready to make any film, let alone your first feature film. So don't wait for the permission to do that. Decide you're going to make a feature film, stick to it, start assembling that team who believe in this project, and it will happen. Look for small miracles. So this is one about being optimistic and hopeful, but also about being opportunistic. So being open to those small miracles that do happen when you're on a film set. Not only opportunities like, hey, this location's come up at the last minute, do you want it? Not just that, but also the small miracles of certain things aligning for you to get a better scene, better performance. So look for them, because if you're not looking, you might miss those opportunities, because small miracles do happen. Start your social media early. So this comes from all the marketeers, all the PR gurus, is as soon as you've decided you're going to make that feature film, you need to be filming behind the scenes footage. You need to be documenting your journey throughout this process of making this film. You need to set up your social media channels and start talking about it. Don't wait for the film to be finished. Don't wait for the film to be released, because there'll be no one ready to watch it. You need to start building that audience straight away. That leads me to a video I've created which you should watch, which is about how to build an audience, so check that one out. But there's lots of chats with professional marketeers on my channel who know all about reaching that audience, and their advice is to start early. The next one, audience, audience, audience. I can't tell you the number of filmmakers I've spoken to who've mentioned their audience as being super important, and perhaps that being something they didn't consider when they made their first feature. With a first feature film, sometimes you feel so creative, you just want to get that film made, and it's a passion project or it's something you're really excited about, but you're not thinking about who's actually going to watch that film. The most successful filmmakers I speak to know who their audience is and what they want, and they make those projects for that audience. This isn't to say you can't enjoy and have fun making the projects or make projects that you want to make. And some filmmakers, what they tend to do is they look at what their audience want, and then they try and fold in some of the things that they enjoy doing and the genres they enjoy doing, but they're always got the audience at the back of their mind, because they know if they don't make something for their audience, they're not going to make money back on that film, they're not going to be able to make another movie. So audience, audience, audience. So the next one, the script wasn't ready. So as a filmmaker, it can be tempting to write your script, keep it to yourself, and then make this first feature film without showing it to anybody. But you really need to do that, and also you need to be open to the feedback that comes back and get the script to a point where it's absolutely ready before you roll cameras. Not only because that's going to save you money later down the line, because you don't want to have to be reshooting things if something doesn't make sense, but also for your audience's sake. You've got to make sure that script is ready. Having a clear genre. So filmmakers often talk about a project they're working on. They might go, oh, what is it? Oh, it's a kind of a romantic horror comedy. Well, that's not really an easy genre when you're trying to sell a film. So a lot of these filmmakers tell me, make sure you choose your genre and you have genre clarity. You can have subgenres, so it could be a horror comedy, but you've got to decide, is it a comedy or is it a horror? What is the primary genre for your film? Because that's going to help your audience, it's going to help the platforms that you put the film on, it's going to inform your artwork, and it's going to make a difference getting more eyes on the film. Filmmakers often mention the obsession with gear and equipment that all us filmmakers have, especially if you've come out of uni, you've studied, you've played with all the best cameras there are. then you want to make a feature film and you want it to look beautiful. So you become obsessed with gear and equipment and you prioritize that over story. Equipment is important and it is something you really need to consider, but don't consider it at the expense of other things that are more important. So this is advice you've probably heard before from other people, but no one's coming to rescue you or offer you this Hollywood job after your first feature. This is something that maybe this has broken down a little bit over the years, but certainly when I first did my first feature film, there was this thought that someone's going to see this film, it's going to go to a big film festival, it's probably Sundance is usually mentioned, it's going to go to Sundance, someone's going to see it, they're going to buy the film, but they're also going to offer me some money to make my next film, and then my film career is going to take off from there. So a lot of filmmakers talk about this being the idealized version of what a first feature leads to, but realistically a first feature, if you're lucky, you're going to make the money back on it and be able to make another one. The cases of people being swept up by Hollywood after their first feature film are very small, so don't consider that as something that you're trying to aim for with your first feature film. Just aim to make a good film that people are going to watch. Finally, the thing that people most often talk about is that they wish they knew more about sales and distribution when they started making their film, because this end of the process really needs to be thought about at the beginning of the process. Now, you're lucky, you're watching this YouTube video, there's tons of YouTube videos out there and podcasts all about sales and distribution. So I would urge you, if you are in this position, you are a first-time filmmaker, then research it before you start writing that script. Think about it in terms of what I'm writing and how that's going to work with sales and distribution, and also that's going to save you a lot of headaches later on, because the other thing you're going to hear from a lot of filmmakers is how they got conned out of all of their money when they signed the wrong contract. So learn about sales and distribution, it will come in handy. I hope that was useful. I couldn't cover all 100 filmmakers, but hopefully there's enough in there to give you some knowledge from all of these people who've made their first feature and learned from it. If you've made a feature film and you've got some advice, stick it in the comments. Love to hear it. Please do let me know if this video was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.